Well, hello, this is Arlissa Pinkleton with 8-Minute Maths. And in this video, we will talk about the rectangular coordinate system, the midpoint, finding the distance, and the circle's general form. We will tie all these things together in this video. Let's start with the midpoint and the distance formulas. So the midpoint formula is the midpoint equals x1 plus x2 over 2. This is our first coordinate. And y1 plus y2 over 2 gives us our y coordinate when you're trying to find the midpoint. Of course, you need to have 2 points that you're working with in order to find the midpoint. When we are using the distance formula, let's put that in our notes too. The distance formula of, let's say, x to y or 2 points. I don't know if I should put x and y, but either way, we've got x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared, the square root of all of that. So that is finding the distance formula. And then for circles, I'm going to put in here the general form for circles is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So where the center is HK and the radius is R. These are 3 formulas we will use in this video, so I wanted to get them listed up front. We will definitely refer back to them. So let's start with finding an example. Let's start with example 1. Find the midpoint of -3, 5, and 8, -1. We're finding the midpoint of -3, 5, and 8, -1. Again, we want to use our formula. Midpoint of these 2 points equals x1 plus x2 over 2, and this is 1 point, and y1 plus y2 over 2, this is going to be our second point. So let's sub in. Well, let's call this x1, and this is y1. This is x2 and y2. So let's substitute x1 plus y1. So -3 plus 8 divided by 2. And for the y1, y2, we have 5 plus -1 all over 2. -3 plus 8 is 5 over 2. And 5 plus -1 is 4 over 2. This is going to reduce to 5 over 2, comma 2. So 5 over 2 is the same as 2.5 and 2. This is the midpoint of the 2 points that we were given here. Find the midpoint of these 2 coordinates. This is the midpoint. Halfway between -3 and 8 is 2.5. Halfway between 5 and -1 is 2. Okay? So now, if we're using the midpoint there, let's move to where we can find, use our distance formula. Let's do an example. Example 2, find distance between 7, -2, and 9, 5. Again, we're using our we're using our distance formula. D equals the square root x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Take the square root of all of that. So what do we have for our x's and y's? Well, this is x1, y1 again, and x2, y2. I think I want a darker marker. This doesn't seem to be showing up very well as far as markers go. So finding the distance between these two. Well, let's substitute in for what we have, the square root of all of this. x1 minus x2, 7 minus 9, and squared. Now, you can also make these both the 1s and these the 2s. It doesn't matter. Is it doing that? The 1s and the 2s, that part doesn't matter as long as you're consistent with it, okay? Plus, y1 is negative 2 minus y2, which is 5, and we square that. It's important that if you determine that both of these are the ones that you don't flip-flop back and forth. It's important that you do that. So equals the square root. 7 minus 9 is negative 2 squared plus negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7, also squared. What determines why this doesn't matter which one you make 1 and 2 is once you square it, it doesn't matter if it's a negative in here once you square it or if it's positive once you square it, you're still going to get the same response, the same answer. So we've got the square root. Negative 2 squared is 4 plus negative 7 squared is 49. So now we have the square root of 53 is the distance. That's the distance between these two is the square root of 53. Well, the square root of 53 is 7 point something or other. So the amount of distance between the two of them is 7 point something. Okay, you can put the square root of 53 inside of your calculator and then find out what that is. Okay, so we have determined we've shown how to use the midpoint formula and how to use the distance formula. Now let's move on to example 3, where we will use what we know to find something else. So if 6 negative 3 is the midpoint of A, which is 2, 3, and B, then find B. They tell us in the problem, what is the midpoint? And they give us one coordinate, but not the other. We need to find the other coordinate. Well, our midpoint formula says that the midpoint, I'm going to call it XY because this is our midpoint, equals X1 plus X2 over 2 and Y1 plus Y2 over 2. Okay, so what we have is for point B, we don't know the X and the Y. So let's just call these coordinates X2 and Y2. Since we don't know what they are, we can call them X2 and Y2. And the A coordinates can be X1 and Y1. These are X1 and Y1. Okay, so let's fill in what we do know. We know that the midpoint is 6 negative 3. So let's put here 6 negative 3 equals X1 plus, we don't know our X2 over 2 and Y1 plus Y2 over 2. Let's fill in what we know on the right side. 6 negative 3 equals our X1 is 2. So 2 plus X2 over 2. And 3 plus Y2 over 2. So if in this first point, the 6 is equal to this first coordinate and negative 3 is equal to the second coordinate. So let's put these together. 6 equals 2 plus x sub 2 over 2. And negative 3 equals 3 plus y2 over 2. 6 equals its first coordinate. Negative 3 equals the second coordinate. So let's solve for x here, then solve for y in the next one. How would we do this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is multiply both sides by 2. Multiply by 2. So now we have 12 equals, these cancel. We have 2 plus x sub 2. Subtract 2 from both sides, and we have x sub 2 equals 10. This is our first coordinate. X sub 2 equals 10. For our y value, we can also multiply both sides by 2. Why by 2? Because we're trying to get rid of this denominator. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 equals 3 plus y sub 2. We can subtract 3 from both sides, and our y sub 2 equals negative 9. So our missing point, our point B, is 10, negative 9. We used the midpoint formula, and what we did know, which was what the midpoint is, to fill in the blanks and then to leave unknown what we didn't know, and then to work our way backwards. So the point B is 10, negative 9, and 6, negative 3 is the midpoint between this 10, negative 9 and 2, 3. So now let's continue from here with the circle part, using the circle's general form. The circle's general form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where the center is hk and the radius equals the r. If you're given, let's say, for example, x minus 4 squared plus y minus, or let's do plus 2 squared equals 36. Then from this you can garner that the center is x minus h. X and the minus are part of the formula. So the number, the h, is just the 4 by itself. This is the same as y minus a negative 2, because the formula is y and the minus sign. So that means the y value of the center is negative 2. And r is the square root of this 36. So the radius equals 6. Based on what the formula tells us, the center here, when you look at this equation, is 4, negative 2 with a radius of 6. So let's do an example. Example 4 is write the equation for a circle when r equals 3 and the center is at 6, 2. When r equals 3 and the center is at 6, 2. Well, according to our formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Let's fill in what we know. Well, we have x minus, this here, the center, this is the h, this is the k. That's the h, that's the k. So x minus 6 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals the radius, which we have is 3 squared. So the equation for our circle in general form is x minus 6 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9. This is the equation of the circle. in general form. Okay? If we have x minus 9 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 25, find the center and the radius. Find the center and the radius. Well, we know that x minus the value here is our h, y minus the value here is our k, and r equals the square root of this value on the equal side. So our center is 9, 4, and our radius equals the square root of 25, which is 5. We found the center and the radius by just looking at the general form of the equation. For our last example, we're going to utilize what we learned with the distance formula to help us determine the equation. So if we're given, I think we're on example 6 now. If we're given x squared plus y squared plus 14x minus 8y plus 56 equals 0, and we're told to write the circle equation in general form, write the circle equation in general form. So let's see what we have. Well, we have x squared, y squared, such and such. Let's put the x's and the y's together. Let's start there. So x squared plus 14x. Then we have y squared minus 8y. And let's move the 56 over to the opposite side of the equal sign. And we do that by subtracting 56 from both sides. We end up with negative 56 here. Step 1. So let's make this step 1. Step 1 here would be to complete the square. Complete the squares for the x's and y's. For x's and y's. Okay, so we need to take the 14 or the b term here to complete the square for this side. We need to take 14, divide that by 2, and then we're going to square it. 14 divided by 2 squared equals 7 squared, which is 49. That's for the x. For the y, we're going to take the negative 8, divide that by 2, and square it, which is negative 4 squared, or positive 16. This goes in place now to complete these equations. So we've got x squared plus 14x plus the 49. This completes the square here. Plus our y squared minus 8y plus 16 completes the square here, equals negative 56. Now, in order to make sure that we keep our equations balanced, we need to do the same thing to the right that we did to the left. Where over here, we added 49. We also added 16. We need to do the same thing over to the right side of this equation. Add 49 and add 16. Add 49 and add 16. So now if we look at x squared plus 14x plus 49, this is x plus 7 squared. And the y squared equation here is y minus 4 squared. If we were to factor this out, remember we were completing the square, which if you're not sure about how to complete the square, you need to find another video. We'll have another video up about how to complete the square, because that's a different skill, but it seems, as you can see here, that it is required to be used in other places. And if we combine negative 56 plus 49 plus 16, we end up with a positive 9. Now, remembering that our equation for the circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Let's now put this to use for us. X plus 7 is the same as x minus negative 7 squared. I'm going to put 2 parentheses here. And the y minus 4 squared is just what we see here, equals r squared. This would be 3 squared. So our h is negative 7. Our k is 4. And our r is 3. So our center is negative 7, 4. And our radius equals 3. That includes how do we find the midpoint, the distance formula, how do we take an equation and complete it in order to find the center and the radius of that circle. Now, you could use this, the distance formula to see where would be if you're given 2 points, where would the center of that be? Okay, so we've got one more example, which is how do you find the center and the equation when all you're given of a circle is 2 points. So you want to find the center and equation for the circle with the diameter of -1, -4, and 5, -4. Well, you have 2 points that you've been given. These are 2 points on the line. I'm going to call them A and B. 2 points on the line and on the outside of the circle. So this is the diameter and it's the outside of the circle. Well, how are we going to find out the equation of the circle? Well, what things do we need? We need to know the center. We need to find the center. We also need to know the radius. Yes? And how do we find these 2 things? Well, we're given the diameter. We know the radius is halfway between these 2 points. So we need to use the midpoint formula. We're going to use our midpoint formula. That should give us the center or the radius of these two points. So our midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. Substituting our x1 and x2. Let's see, this is x1 and y1. This is x2 and y2. Putting those in. So x1, -1 plus 5 all over 2. And -4 plus a -4. This is y1 and y2 all over 2. So -1 plus 5 is 4 over 2, comma, -4 is -8 over 2. So this equals 2 over -4. This is the center of the circle. We used our midpoint formula in order to find the center of the formula, the center of the circle. We also need to know how far is the radius? How long is the radius? We can do two different things. We can use the center and one of these points to determine the length of the radius, or you could graph it. We can use the distance formula to find the radius. Okay, we can do that. Let's use the point A, which is -1, -4, and we'll use the center because we're going from the edge to the center. That tells us the radius. Let's use our distance formula. Our distance formula is square root here of x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Okay, fill in our blanks here. We got the square root. X1 minus x2. So -1 minus 2 squared plus -4 minus -4. This is also squared. All this under the square root symbol. Square root of -1 minus 2 more is the square root of -3 squared plus -4. These two minuses in the middle make a plus, so this becomes 0 squared. So we have the square root now of -3 squared is 9. So the square root of 9 equals 3. So the distance from the edge to the center is 3. This means our radius equals 3. So now we're ready to write our equation. Remember, the equation of the circle needs the center, which we have. Our center is 2, -4. And it needs the radius, which we have because that's 3. We can take this now and write our equation. X minus h, which is 2. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared, k is -4 squared, equals the radius squared. So now we have x minus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 9. That is the equation of the circle in general form based on this situation of having the 2 points given to us for the diameter on the outer edge of the circle. We found our center. We then found our radius, used that information, the center and the radius, in order to write our equation. And this is what we've done in order to complete. How do we write the equation of a circle when all you're given is 2 points on the outer edge of the circle? So our next video is going to include exponents. We're moving to exponents, working with how to evaluate and how to simplify exponents for the product rule and quotient rule and the power rule and the zero exponent, the negative exponents, all the things with exponents. We're pulling that into our next video. So definitely check us out there. All right. The information I just shared with you is something that's included in the Algebra Survival Kit. The Algebra Survival Kit is a full comprehensive tool and a resource that will provide you everything you need to pass your college math class. The address to find it is bit.ly/algebra-survival-kit. This month it is on special for $50. March 1st, it will go back up to the normal price of $88. You can find us there. Check us out also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Arlissa Pinkleton and 8-Minute Maths. We're on LinkedIn, Arlissa Pinkleton and 8-Minute Maths. We have a Facebook group that supports people who have returned to college. It is called 8-Minute Maths College Help. You can check us out there or go straight to our website at 8minutemaths.com. We've got a blog there and several pieces of information that you can download for your freebies. So we look forward to doing another video with you soon, and continue to look for us when you are trying to find out information for your math help. Thank you. Bye-bye. If this video has been helpful to you, then subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when new videos are posted. Also, visit us at 8minutemath.com, where you can see our content and resources and courses, things that are available to you there. Lastly, follow us on Facebook at 8minutemathhelp.com. We look forward to seeing you there.